Hey everybody, I'm Geist,
And I'm Kyothos.
and welcome to the Random Things Podcast, where anything is possible and everything will be talked about.
Just come and kill, mate.
Now, this is a podcast that we've been wanting to start for quite a while, and we were going to wait until summertime where we've had the most time available, but we figured with most of the time on our side, we'd be able to utilize it completely and start earlier. Now, as the name suggests, everything is possible and anything is worthy of talking about.
As long as it's YouTube friendly, quote unquote.
Yes, guidelines considered. With that out of the way,
Unfortunately, we're going to have to censor ourselves quite a lot. Especially myself.
that will be a challenge for you, won't it?
I'm already rocking in my center.
Now,
I'm already rocking in the corner.
Now the deal with this is, initially what we're going to do is have pre-recorded episodes of these podcasts, put them up on YouTube.
Continue.
I'm going to go ahead and put my slushy to the side.
You don't gotta brag.
It's watermelon, it's not even that great.
No. I like them.
Regardless, we're going to do pre-recorded episodes for a while, and once we get a large enough following, then we'll be able to do live streams where we can do Q&As and other activities at the same time, which I hope we eventually get to in the future. But for right now, start small and climb the ladder up to the top, like climbing Mount Everest, except we don't have to get a bunch of gear and climb up a mountain where we can die from suffocation.
Actually, you're only allowed to climb Mount Everest after a certain altitude, after you've reached a certain altitude.
Really?
Yeah.
What about
It's
the
a
people?
requirement.
What about the people that reach the top?
No, well, yeah, they've climbed smaller mountains. There's a limit to where there's a minimum of distance you could go up before you could climb Everest.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
Then again, I'm not a mountain climber, so I wouldn't know.
Neither am I, okay? But I learned that the other day. And they use bodies as markers.
That's the interesting thing. If you think about it, nature is scary. Like, think about think about this. Any mountain could be a possible volcano.
Not really.
Well, I mean, some of them are. Like, Mount St. Helens. Think about this. Mount St. Helens was just a dormant volcano, right? And then, boom, out of nowhere, just one day, it erupts, and a lot of people, a lot of people died, like, up to 100 people died or something like that.
That was not many of them.
But
just a flesh wound, mate.
But no,
just a flesh wound.
But one thing I find
Go get that cleaned up at the nearest river.
One thing I find crazier than volcanoes and all that are the animals that live on this planet. Especially deep sea creatures. Like, personally, I can't stand anything related to the abyss.
They leave.
Because
I'm gonna say when a volcano erupts, they leave.
Here's the one deal. I watched this documentary. I tried watching this documentary series on Netflix. I think it was called The Amazing Blue or something like that. In the second episode, they were talking about the abyss. Now, anyone who doesn't know what the abyss is,
go ahead and brag about yourself again.
Essentially, anything. I want to say about what? I want to say about 10,000 meters below the sea.
What?
10,000 meters below is like the abyss.
Are you talking about the Marianas Trench?
Not the trench necessarily, but the level of the sea where it's considered the abyss, where the light literally does not shine.
Right around there, yeah.
Yeah, and what was really, I mean, the fish are interesting. I mean, they produce their own light, and you can see all these really weird creatures.
Well, it's not really technically light; it's bioluminescence.
Yeah, I mean, it's a form of light. They're able to show themselves.
But it's not actual light.
It's not like sunlight.
No, it's actually not considered light. It's considered bioluminescence, which is different.
Well, I know that, but...
And it's produced by bacteria.
But that's actually the scary thing. So some fish use bioluminescence to find out where they're going, but the more they do it, the more the predator can see them.
Yeah.
That's what really messed me up. Knowing that every time I turn on my little light thing, that I find out where I'm going, but that means that some dude could see me and could eat me. That'd be really scary. And generally, the sea is scary itself. I think they say we know more about the moon's surface than our own ocean.
No, they don't say that. They say we know more about space than the ocean.
Something like that. We generally don't know, anything about the ocean, which is, first of all, very interesting because we could identify over 11,000 species of ant, and we can't identify the difference between like 3 different sharks. And they're actually, and that's always
hammerhead, leopard,
what
whale.
Like deep sea sharks.
Frilled.
That's actually one thing. I always find these videos interesting about prehistoric creatures. Like there was that one shark where it had like if you looked at it from the side, its body was like shaped like an S, and it kind of move around, kind of like a shark does, but it moves its body around because it's like an eel almost.
Frilled shark.
That's what they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, one was brought to by scientists, but it died the moment they took it out of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I always find those interesting because, I mean, I like dinosaurs in general just because it's crazy to imagine these huge creatures roam the earth at one point.
Well, then again, oxygen levels were enormous back then.
Yeah.
What, is it like 25% now? It used to be like 50%, or like something crazy like that.
I mean, probably because the vegetation was huge.
No, what a lot of maybe.
I mean, because
what I've heard a lot of scientists and all those people that study dinosaurs is that a lot of scientists, I should say too, that they believe that animals were much bigger back then because of oxygen. The oxygen levels were immense back then.
Well, yeah, because I only imagine that the bigger the mammal, the larger the lungs.
Yeah.
That means the more oxygen is required.
And more brains.
That's actually another series. I think I can find that on Netflix. I'll watch it again if I find it. But it's a series about the mammals. Because after the dinosaurs, since there's so many documentaries made about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
By the way,
I never really understood where mammals fit in.
It said mammals have actually been around the same time as dinosaurs. The only problem was the dinosaurs were so huge, like the T-Rex and Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus is, on a side note, Spinosaurus is my favorite dinosaur. My favorite dinosaur. When I saw in Jurassic Park 3, where it grabbed the T-Rex and just snapped its neck, loved it. My favorite dinosaur.
My favorite is the Spinosaurus.
Hey, high five. We have something in common.
I said Spinosaurus, not Stegosaurus.
I didn't say Stegosaurus.
What'd you say?
Spinosaurus.
Oh. I heard Stegosaurus.
I mean, Stegosaurus is probably one of the most iconic dinosaurs, besides Triceratops and T-Rex. That's always... There's actually...
And Bronchosaurus. Or Brontosaurus. And Bronchiosaurus. And all those other B-sauruses.
It's so interesting because... Gosh, I want to say it was like 2nd grade when we started... No. Yeah, it was like 2nd grade when we last talked about dinosaurs, and I still remember their names like no problem. That's odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, so mammals were around the same time as dinosaurs.
Not really.
Well, not until late.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But they were small because the dinosaurs were so huge.
And then there also evidence is also coming out that it is possible that humans also did live among dinosaurs.
Well, probably not like I said, with mammals, probably late. Like, there's almost zero left.
No, I mean, like, early humans, like cavemen.
Well, there was, like, different kinds of cavemen. Which one are they talking about? Because the longest one that we know of that goes so far back is Australopithecus. And that was, like, 6 million years ago.
Yeah, probably, like, 5 million years ago.
Okay, so Australopithecus was probably around
that. 5 or 3 million years ago, something like that.
So Australopithecus probably, and then it goes Homo habilis. They figured out how to use tools, right? They were the first ones to develop tools. There's Homo erectus. Not kidding, they named it this.
I know the name. Well, not all of them.
I think it was because
I know Homo erectus.
they first started using stone tools. Then there was Neanderthal, and back in I want to say it was sixth grade. Sixth grade, we didn't really talk much about the Neanderthals. There wasn't too much about them.
Well, no, because we just made it seem like these people were uncivilized and barbaric, just like many. I would say countries right now, mainly Africa.
I mean, ultimately, the Neanderthal, all we know is that they had a weird skull shape, and we use it to insult somebody's intelligence. And then the last one.
Southern people. Ironically, they actually suffer from a parasite that makes them dumber.
Really? There's a parasite that does that?
Aye.
And then the last cave people that I remember was a Cro-Magnon.
You
ever heard of them?
No.
They're around like 10,000 years ago or something like that.
No.
They actually did cave paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually a story about them. I forgot what story it was, but it's about this little kid who's a Cro-Magnon, and he learns from this old dude about cave paintings and all that, how to utilize them. And the dad, because they had a bunch of taboo, they believed heavily in taboo, and cave painting was actually considered taboo, which contradicts what they were known for, which was cave painting.
Well, considering you also have to consider we also believe in taboo things.
Well, yeah, but not to the same extent. Like, we're not going to kill somebody over it.
Some people might.
Well, yeah.
You know how people react to rape jokes and quote-unquote sexist jokes?
Well, yeah. Those aren't generally well accepted. I mean...
Because people are idiots?
Well, not necessarily because they're idiots.
It's to learn to take goddamn joke.
I don't think it's necessarily much about them not being able to take a joke or humor.
It is because they can't take a joke. It's
sensitivity.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Sensitivity is the lack of being able to take a joke.
Generally, if I find those kind of jokes funny, that doesn't mean that I'm going to go and start parading them around, because I have to consider everyone. Some people may not be into it.
No, you don't have to consider everybody. You just consider yourself. If you find it funny, good. If you don't, then go somewhere else.
But yeah, so he ends up fighting a bull, and I think he wins, but he gets like badly beaten up. But Cro-Magnon are the ones where.
You hit the bull, you cut the horns. A lot of times up the ass.
And then there's ours, which is Homo sapiens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always interesting, but the documentary series, I need to find what it's called. But the first episode talks about a lot of different species, because birds actually ruled the earth at one point. Just because the mammals were small, like the biggest one there was what was like an alligator-looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Ambulocetus. It looked like an alligator, and apparently alligators were alive back then, like prehistoric alligators.
They were much bigger.
But alligators, they would tuck their feet in and like move their tail in kind of like the S-like pattern.
Mm-hmm.
The Ambulocetus would swim like a frog. It would kick its back legs to move around.
Oh.
And it was amphibian, so it would lay under the water, wait for an animal to come by to the water supply and drag it down and drown it.
Alligators, I don't know if I think it's alligators. They can hold their breath for a whole day.
Probably. I can only imagine so. I mean, if alligator...
Well, I'm just saying, I don't remember which animal it was, either the crocodile or the alligator.
What?
I presume all three, including the caiman.
I'm gonna be honest. Crocodiles and alligators are so similar in anatomy that if one can breathe underwater for a day, I can assume the other one can too.
True.
but the ambulocetus, because eventually the whole episode goes on about this like little deer mouse, like it looked like a deer mouse but like a kangaroo kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
How the whole day it avoided. By the way, they also showed these ants. These ants were huge. They're like the size of the palm of my hand.
And there were dragonflies like 16 inches long.
Yeah, it was crazy. And what was worse was the bird. They showed this bird. I forgot what it's called, but it laid an egg, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the egg was hatching, but the ants got to the bird, the baby bird. It was horrible to watch. I could not imagine having ants the size of the palm of my hand living around today. No, thank you. But so it goes to the whole episode. Then near the end of the episode, because they mentioned like kind of like a geothermal kind of activity under the water, it would release carbon dioxide, right?
Yeah, and a lot of those clouds would suffocate the dinosaurs.
Yeah, what ended up happening was that a lot of the carbon dioxide built up and was released all at once, and the whole cloud just went all over the place and suffocated everything that was on the ground floor.
And that's what I said.
I'm not saying you were incorrect, but the deer thing, it managed to survive. Well, it's like
because it was really low.
Well, no, it's because where it was out of the carbon dioxide's path, but it went to the ambulocetus, right? The ambulocetus, it was dead, just dead. Wasn't moving. And what confused me, I thought it was the ancestor to like a frog or alligator or something. No, it was actually the ancestor to the whale. And then the next episode, they talked about criminy. What was Lapras based off of? Plesiosaur. There you go.
I've heard it pronounced plesiosaur.
Or mesosaur or something like that. A giant whale, essentially. It's like
not really a whale. It just looks like Lapras or Mario's Lapras.
It had like a huge body with like a really long tail.
And a long neck.
And essentially the second episode...
It's basically the sea long neck.
Yeah, essentially they talked about how whales then kind of dominated, and goes through the story of this ancestor to the whale, and it's trying to find food for its young. It's a good documentary. I need to find it on Netflix somewhere.
So if sharks exist or existed and whales existed, does that mean they had a love-hate relation with each other and created the whale shark?
Possibly. I wouldn't know, because I am not a marine biologist by any stretch of imagination.
Well, I mean, people could look it up.
Yeah.
That would be funny if it was like that.
I mean that.
But at the same time, it wouldn't.
Yeah, there's actually. Which do you think is actually more dangerous, an alligator or a shark in shallow water?
Shallow water crocodile.
Crocodile?
Yeah. A shark can't do anything. Well, it can still launch itself at you, but at the same time, if it's considering shallow water, what do you mean shallow water? Enough to just cover its body?
Like up to about your knees.
What kind of shark too?
I'm not gonna say great white because they wouldn't do that. Bull shark.
Bull shark are very aggressive. Considering
the testosterone.
What?
They have a lot of testosterone.
Don't you slip that shit in here.
Well, no, that's what makes them aggressive. They have large amounts of testosterone.
But yeah, they are massively aggressive. But crocodiles can go on land, obviously, for longer. And whenever a shark is out of water, it would instantly die. Well, not instantly, obviously.
Probably about a minute.
but it would start to basically choke to death. Um, and it wouldn't necessarily. It may not kill you. It may not kill you, but maybe the wounds will, and the bleeding.
And the
obviously.
infection, if they're not treated properly.
If you do end up living past the whole bleeding everywhere.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily like if you get bit by a crocodile, I wouldn't care so much about bleeding to death.
It'll eat you.
Not necessarily crocodiles.
The crocodile will eat you. The shark won't. Not all of you. It will die before it gets to everything.
Well, if I was, because generally I don't think crocodiles. I mean, crocodiles are strong, but the problem with them is their downward bite is so strong that unfortunately when they go to open their mouth, it's so weak that you can literally just hold the snout and just hold it there, and they can't do anything. But if I got bit by a crocodile, like a nice solid bite, and didn't take my leg off or anything, I care more about the infection if that doesn't get treated properly. Because infections can kill you quicker than bleeding.
But crocodiles do that spin thing, which then...
when they start shaking?
Yeah, they
that would probably be really bad.
So that's what I'm saying. Crocodiles would eat you. A shark wouldn't necessarily eat you.
They take a chunk out of you.
They would take a chunk out of you, maybe even let you bleed there. If you had someone to help you, there's a very slight possibility that you will make it out alive. In a shallow shark attack. Shallow water shark attack. So I would give it to the shark. At least there is some possibility of living. Alligator, you're dead. Or crocodile. Or caiman.
Yeah, those things are strong. Alright. Well, this has been the first episode of the Random Things podcast.
Really, that's it?
Well, you want to go on longer?
Well, I was hoping to continue the story about the dinosaurs.
We can go on for about a few more minutes, yeah.
Wait, how do you see the time?
But yeah, the dinosaurs definitely are an interesting.
Oh.
Definitely.
Wait, can we do it for like an hour? Or like half an hour? We're barely at 22 minutes.
Start small, then go farther.
Small is 30 minutes. We could have done it 10 minutes. If you wanted to do it small.
No, 20 to 30 minutes max.
Alright.
So.
Let's do the 65 to 25 for wasting time.
But yeah, so dinosaurs are really interesting creatures.
Or do you just want to change the topic?
Well, we went.
Considering we forgot almost everything that we were talking about.
Well, first we were talking about dinosaurs, and then we talked about oxygen, then we talked about crocodiles and alligators, and we talked about sharks.
We can't leave the caiman out. We can't leave for alligator out of this. Yes, for alligator is a caiman for all of those who didn't know.
What do you think the deadliest creature in the whole world is?
Currently? Or like in the past?
Right now. If we were traveling the world right now, what would be the deadliest creature you can think of? Mosquito? Why is that?
You don't, it may have, depending, where, also, mainly in like third world countries, because they have a lot of diseases and viruses over there.
Mm-hmm.
But if one were to bite that person and then bite you, you would get infected with a disease. And then if you go over there and then you come back, you have the chance of transferring that bacteria or virus to other people here, ensuring the spread of the bacteria or virus, the disease.
Yeah, I can see mosquito. Personally, I was thinking spider. Now, this seems like a kind of cliche pick, but
Not really.
generally, I'm not a fan of spiders. I don't have a problem with spiders, but I prefer not to be near them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't
there's a
necessarily.
difference. House spiders are not necessarily deadly.
But-
sure, it hurts,
But here's the problem.
but they're not like very venomous.
I'm not a arachnologist, so I'm not able to identify. I actually watched a video about it. There's like 3 different spiders. There's like the black widow, which can kill you in like a bite, right?
Yeah.
There was a
It
brown.
takes about an hour. Or so.
There's a brown recluse. Thankfully, we don't have these in California. Midwest, it's a different story. Brown recluse tend to be very active during the summertime. That's like their hatching
What
time.
about daddy long legs?
Daddy longlegs.
Oh, it's not a spider. I just remembered that. It's not a spider.
What is it then?
They have a different name, but daddy long legs is a plant,
Oh, is it?
I think.
But anyway, so there's a brown recluse, which upon biting you, the venom will cause your leg, or wherever it bites you, probably the leg, that's where most tend to get bit, will cause it to rot and fall off. And then they brought up the Brazilian wandering spider. Now,
Well,
It's
they're
been-
Brazilian.
it's been given the name of the blue pill spider.
Oh yeah.
Why? Because it, upon biting you, it creates. Now
It gives you an erection.
for 4 straight hours and then kills you. And honestly, after hearing that, I can't look at spiders the same way. Because generally, like I said, I'm not a arachnologist, and I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. But if I can't tell the difference between a normal house spider and the Brazilian wandering spider, no thank you. And there was actually one time where I got bit by a spider, but I didn't notice it until it was like very noticeable. This actually happened. So I was playing Wizard 101 at the time. This was years ago, so it actually still is very prevalent. They actually just released a new expansion for Mirage, where it's like Arabian Nights kind of deal, like Aladdin and the 40 Thieves. You know what I'm talking about?
Kinda, yeah.
There's actually a story called like 1001 Arabian Nights or something like that. Sounds like a good book, but I've never been able to read it. Essentially,
You got the internet basically at your fingertips.
I like to read physical books. I don't know why. Anyway, so I was playing, right?
Don't waste that much paper.
You
gotta be efficient.
Anyway, so I was playing the game, right? And I noticed that my hand was starting to get really itchy, right? And I noticed because it didn't look like it didn't look like
Carpal tunnel syndrome.
no. There was like there was a spot on my hand on my right hand. There was like a spot, and it was like really itchy. And I was like, it did not look like a mosquito bite because it had a white ring around it. Because spider bites have one of two things. One, if there's a white ring around it, it's just itchy and your body's fighting it. If there's not, it's venomous. You need to go to the doctor. So I went to the kitchen and I was like, hey, what's the deal with this bite on my hand? They're like, dude, that's a spider bite. I was like, really? So what they ended up putting, they put some anti-itch cream, which actually made it worse as a result. And have you ever noticed that?
No, not
If,
really.
if you're suffering from, if there's something like itching, it doesn't itch like so
Well,
much.
I
But when
think
you
what
put
they
something
could
on
do
it,
is put antibacterial cream on it. That would definitely stop the itch. Or put some ice on it.
well, what ended up happening, so they put the cream on it and it went away after a while. But I was like, well, when did I get bit? I remembered just earlier that day, a black and yellow spider was hanging around where I was. And I guess he must have like landed on my hand and bit me before he like jumped off.
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
I've actually been stung by. I don't think I've ever been stung by a bee. I've been stung by a wasp before. It hurt. It really did. I actually knew one girl who got stung right in between her toenail and her toe
Oh.
by a bee. It was horrible. She was crying. This was when I was 6th grade, so you're not exactly mentally tough as you are now.
Yeah.
But there's
this chick who got stung in the ear.
Ooh.
Not in the ear, but like on the lobe.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, if you get stung in the ear, ooh, good luck with that. Good luck coming from that one.
Yeah.
Um,
She just started crying, and then the teacher was walking her walking her to the office, and then everybody was like, "Yo, what happened?" And then there were some kids behind that got the story from the teacher, and they're like, "Oh, she got stung by a bee."
Yeah, here's actually the one thing. So between a bee, a wasp, a hornet, and a yellow jacket, which would you rather get stung by?
Yellow jacket a type of bee?
They're more similar to a wasp.
Yeah, wasp. Well, they're a type of wasp. A bee and a hornet and a wasp are basically three different creatures, aren't they?
Yeah.
But then you have the yellow jacket, which is a type of wasp.
Yeah, but there's a lot. It's very different. It's very distinct. So a lot of people just call it like its own thing. But here's the deal. So between those four, I'd rather be dealt with a wasp. Here's why.
Well, considering I don't know the specifics of a hornet or a yellow jacket, I think getting stung by a bee is a lot better.
Well, here's the deal. I like bees, so I prefer not to get stung by one and end up killing him in the end. Yellow jackets, they're like wasps, but like hurt like 10 times worse.
Yeah.
And here's the deal with hornets. Hornets, you never want to get stung with. Why? Because the moment they sting or bite you, they release like this hormone into the air, and it brings out more hornets to get you.
Without feelings, for like one thing or another, it would still be best to be stung by a bee, because at least you could just get stung once.
Yeah.
Unless there are a bunch around.
Moral
high ground. Moral equality, whatever it is.
Moral compasses aside, bees.
Yes. We should leave our moral compass at home. Well, you are at home. Leave it in another room.
Alright, so this time for real.
And I should leave it at home.
This time for real, this is the end of episode 1 of our Random Things podcast. We hope you enjoyed.
1.5.
We try to go no more than 30 minutes to begin with. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be doing more of these later in the future. We'll try to do one every week if we can. Granted that time does not revolve around us, nor do we revolve around time. It's just if the door is open.
Time revolves around us.
Well,
every single day.
It doesn't bend to our will.
You didn't say that. You said it revolves around.
Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the podcast. This is Geist.
Motion is the key to time.
This is Geist and Tarza. Kyoto's Tarza signing out.